I think it's very important to know how to deal with ideas, and especially with a large volume of A B test ideas, and how that can improve your experimentation program. So, what most people think is that having a lot of ideas hurts the quality of those ideas. And what I often see happening is that maybe CRO specialist or CRO people or a specific team tries to rationalize and kill other ideas or people that come with other ideas. They immediately say, like, oh no, this is low on the priority, or they say things like, okay, this is not researched enough. While that idea might not be fully formed yet, it could potentially be interesting. So, what I always recommend is to work with ideas in a different way. Also, because actually, the more ideas you have, the better the quality of those ideas will be. Here you see a piece of research, which is quite interesting. And it's definitely also something I've noticed, not only for experimentation, actually, but just stopping with one idea or a certain people having certain ideas doesn't always lead to better quality in experimentation programs as well. So what actually happens is, if you think of a lot of ideas hurts the quality, so quantity hurts quality. Actually, if you would start to collect a lot of ideas, so go collect 100 ideas, you will see that some of them are small, some of them are big and disruptive and would take a lot of time to create. Some of them would be data driven, others would be leaps of faith, and some would be from one source, and maybe others would be from co-workers working together. So if you have like 100 ideas, you kind of need to force yourself to think out of the box, to work with other people. And I think that's very interesting with experimentation, and that you can, of course, be data driven and see what actually works. So another problem that I often see is that we really like to jump to solutions. So, for example, we see like, hey, most of the clicks are on this FAQ question. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the copy higher. But if you're into experimentation for a while, you might notice that tests can fail. And then if you keep on iterating and if you keep on trying something else, think outside the box, you might find the win in there. So instead of immediately jumping to a solution, it's good to also in your mind just like have this mental model of, okay, I will try this first, like place copy higher, maybe based on prioritization as well. But I know that there might be more possibilities. I mean, I could make the content of this more visual, or maybe the full question should be removed of this FAQ question because maybe it gets people confused. You know, they can all be winners. So it's good to leave some room. And I think what we don't like is kind of the chaos of having a lot of ideas, and how do you deal with that? So we kind of tend to push a lot of ideas away, and I think that's really a waste. Also, something that might happen is the Dunning-Kruger effect, that in the beginning, when you start out and your experimentation maturity is maybe low, you think like, hey, all my ideas or our team ideas are great. But then, of course, slowly you will learn like, okay, a win rate is usually quite low. Most of experiments are not winning. And you will learn like, hey, it's normal to fail, but we can, if we fail, at least we can iterate and try again. And then you will learn like, hey, very few of our ideas actually work. So it's better to have a lot of them to be able to work with a lot of different directions and different possibilities. Here you see the triple diamond model. Actually, the base of this is the double diamond model. It's used by Google. It's a model that comes from artists, actually, which is interesting because it's used by IT companies. And here I kind of filled it out for experimentation. And what I'm focusing on here is the middle one, the solution discovery part. So you've done a lot of research and then recognize patterns and stuff. And then you're going to come up with solutions. And instead of coming up with only one solution, you diverge and you come up with like 10 solutions. Not to say that those 10 are the ones that you're all going to test, but it's just good to, push yourself to think in different directions. And like I said, work with other people. And then after you have your 10 ideas, you can start to converge. Okay, sorry, I'm not native English. Doesn't matter. But what you want to do next is, okay, you have those 10 ideas and you're going to do prioritization. You're going to do bandwidth calculations to make sure you can run this test with the MDE. You're going to create a hypothesis to make sure, like, hey, is there actually something that we can measure in this test? And that will make you have a test plan. And what this does is you will have 10 ideas, but in the end, you will have a place to start, and you will have one idea that you will start with. And if that one idea is not the idea that works, then you still have, 10 other solutions to try. So that's really cool. But what I often see happening very fast, and especially in social groups, is that we immediately start prioritizing bandwidth, hypothesis, killing off ideas. And that happens too fast. So if you do that and you kind of neglect the ideas that were there, that were sparked, you might never remember them, while they could actually have been, the solution after losing a losing test. And I think there is some kind of chemistry in there, especially if you work together with other people. So this is H2O, right? It's water. And what you see is that this is made up from different elements. So sometimes working together with people, with different types of people, can also create new ideas, new compounds. I call this the collaboration bonus, because you kind of tap into the transactive memory and associative networks in the brain of team members, or maybe even outside your team members. And if you think about creativity is generation of novel ideas that are useful. And we use A/B testing to see if they are useful, of course, which is pretty cool. But what we often think is, like, we have creative people and we have non-creative people. So let's say we have 3 groups of people here. We have the interns, we have the development team, and we have creative people. We're gonna brainstorm or work together in a certain way. And team 1 has intern, and the intern has that one green idea, and then has 2 creative people. And the 2 creative people come up with 4 ideas. But the thing is, those 2 creative people went to the same school. They grow up in the same village. And their ideas, as you can see with the colors here, are all the same. So in the end, when working with a group and ideation, it's not only about being creative, it's also about where do ideas overlap, and which ideas are unique. So if you would look to a second team here, you will see that I added someone from development here who has a new idea, but also has the same idea as creative people. So in this case, there is the same amount of unique ideas with a team of 3 people, with people or a person that's considered less creative. Something else which is good to mention is that this doesn't always work. It's not like you work together with a lot of people and it immediately works. What I see is, and I've seen this actually recently this year, I worked together with a financial institution. It was kind of a non-safe work environment because the higher-ups would always be very critical and try to over-rationalize everything. Even my work as a consultant there was kind of always questioned. And I was outside the team, right? So it didn't hurt me much, but I can imagine if you work for that team that is tricky. And what you see then is when you try to do ideation is you have a lot of different people and they come up with all the same ideas because they already know, like, hey, my boss or my manager will approve of those ideas. Those are the ideas that are conscious in the group and approved by, the higher ups. So those are the ideas that we're going to talk about. And I think, this is actually quite sad, right? But it's not something that you can easily fix. It definitely has to do with culture and having a safe environment. Right, so we go back to having more ideas leads to a better quality of ideas. An example of Bing, they added 20% more tests and that resulted in a 17% improvement in conversion. So that's great. Let's do that as well for your case, if that's possible with your traffic, of course. And what you see here as well, this is like the example of having, more ideas leads to more results. So that's pretty cool. And what I want to show you right here is, again, the triple diamond model, but then the second part. So let's say we have collected a lot of ideas, worked together with a lot of people, did research, of course, in the stage before. And then what we're going to do, and this phase is separate, right? We're going to kind of use rationalization to figure out which test to start with. And something you can work with is a goal tree map. This is a goal tree map of CRO, CXL agency. And what you see here is kind of what you measure your test on and what is important, for example, in the next quarter. So this can also help you determine where to start, of course. If the goal is to increase logins for the website this quarter, then, an idea that has that as a KPI makes more sense. Also, what you can use is prioritization. This is PXL framework. You can use different models of prioritization, but this is a very nice way to, take opinions out and use prioritization in a kind of a data-driven way to filter out the ideas and where to start with. Something else that's important to do is, of course, bandwidth calculations. Bandwidth calculations help you determine how long a test should run, and also what the MDE is. And the MDE is the minimum detectable effect. So underneath here, you see this framework from CRO. And what it says is like you have iterative small tests, you have substantial tests, and you have disruptive tests. And I kind of link this in my mind to MDE. So for me, copy tweaks, design element tweaks, I think that they can have an effect of like 1 to 5%, which fits then those kind of ideas fits with a minimum detectable effect of 1.5. Then bigger ideas, that would work with a minimum detectable effect of a little bit higher. And then big disruptive ideas, you hope that the detectable effect of that is high. So this is a way how you can use MDE with kind of your idea and if that would fit. But this also requires some experience, I guess, and seeing a lot of test win or not. I see this is Dutch, doesn't matter. But of course, you need a good hypothesis. You want to have the data, the insights, and then you want to tell about, the change that it's going to bring, and then how you're going to measure it. Sorry about this. And then you, of course, because it's Dutch, and then you, of course, create a test plan and you have a reason why, you have your hypothesis, you have all your details displayed, how long the test is going to run. And, then you can, with those kind of processes and tools that we have, you filter out the best ideas, of course, and hopefully you come up with one idea. Some other tricks to support a large volume of ideas is kind of helping creativity for yourself, but also maybe for your team members. So most people know, like when you go for a walk, when you do the dishes, when you do kind of a routine, almost meditative task, this is the moment when your default network, sometimes it's called like that, sometimes it's called like system one, or at least I compared it to, that's when that is at play, and that's when you're very creative. It also doesn't help to have a lot of pressure, but a little bit can work. And what it does is you want to be tapping into associative networks to get ideas. So it can be that you go to tennis training and you get an idea for experimentation, and that is creativity in a way because it's associative. And what you want to do is kind of keep that judging, rationalizing mind away when you ideate, because, like we just spoke about, that's the second part of it. That's when you start doing prioritization. But don't kill very young ideas yet, because they can develop later into something that might be interesting. I use Airtable also to support ideation. And ideally, I have a lot of people adding ideas in here, but sometimes I also listen to other people and what they say during meetings. And then I just quickly write down their ideas, because I know even though if they sound, weird or they might not work, I do write them down because there might be a sense of truth in there or something that I can follow up with maybe later or for a different problem. So what you want to create is kind of the writer's notebook in a way. Writers usually carry around their notebooks for when they have inspiration. And of course, they write down a lot of ideas that they will never use. So you want to have a place where you can store ideas in a very easy, manageable way. And that can be, it can be for yourself that you do that quickly in Evernote or you do that in Airtable, whatever works for you. And if it works for other people as well, that's even better, of course. And then what you might also want to do is kind of bring people together, not necessarily in traditional brainstorms, because what happens in traditional brainstorms is we kind of already agree on the ideas that we all have, but kind of the developers, if you have a developer at the table, their unique idea gets left on the table because, other people like maybe a designer or maybe me wouldn't immediately agree with that. So what you want to do is facilitate a brainstorm. Here you see why brainstorms are a bad idea, because you have to share the floor in a way while speaking. So I have a new way to brainstorm that's also on YouTube video. I have a Miro template for that, but a way in which you also kind of harvest the ideas of individuals. Okay, next thing is, as a CRO specialist, experimentation strategist, however you call yourself, we push a lot. Like we push newsletters, results in Slack, emails, meetings, and wow, look at us having results. But do you actually listen to other teams as well? Do you collect their ideas? Do you collect their problems and the decisions that they would like to make? So I highly recommend you to also work together with that, and not only push ideas, but also kind of go to the other people, and instead of pushing stuff, listen more and create processes kind of to gather ideas, to work with other teams, and maybe certain cadences like once a month to listen to other teams' presentations, or to just have a coffee. Because what you want eventually is this culture of experimentation where the legal department doesn't come to you and say like, hey, these are the terms and conditions, implement it like this on your website. No, what you want is a conversation about how can we do that in the best UX way. And the same with developers, the same with customer service. In a way, you would like to work together with these teams who might be far away from you to get their ideas for A/B testing. Because they come from a different place and they might have different opportunities for growth as well. This is something I always do in Airtable. Like per quarter, I write down the number of ideas, and sometimes I call them like my list of crazy ideas or just rough ideas. And then you see next to it the number of experiments actually run. Okay, much lower, doesn't matter. It's it's a funnel, right, in the end. And then you see the percentage of winning experiments implemented, which is also important. Here you see like this team was a bit slow, so it might, it took a while for the backlog, the development backlog to pick up on our tests. So you can start improving that. But also I'll always work with how many departments are involved in experimentation and how many different people are suggesting ideas. So this is a way that you can measure ideation and a way that you can also measure how to work together with other people. I call this the collaboration bonus. The collaboration bonus is basically leveraging the knowledge from other people and their ideas and their decisions to have better experimentation programs. So enjoy it. I hope you can work together now with a lot of ideas. Let me know how it works. If it doesn't work, tell me. Maybe I can help. Thanks so much. Bye.